We'll tell you exactly what this 3-year initiative hopes to achieve and where our staff and financial resources will be invested. And we'll explain how you can get involved in advancing this work with us. This is an important seat at the table for those interested, in joining us. Give me 1 second. We'll share how everyone can get involved, and we'll certainly leave some time for questions as we go through, but that's our agenda for this morning, and we're gonna just jump right in. Over the last 16 months in our COVID relief work, we've seen firsthand just how deep the digital divide is for thousands of people. And what we mean by this term is the gap between those able to benefit from having access to computer technology and the internet and those who are not able to benefit. We've seen this divide for students and their ability to learn and achieve academic success. You just heard Tatiana's story in our Rising Together video. She had to decide between her own college courses or to give her laptop or broadband access to her 8-year-old brother so he could participate in class. We've seen the impact on getting needed health care for people. Either our healthcare workers lack the digital technology to pivot to telehealth solutions, or our residents lack the devices and access for telehealth programs. We've seen rising mental health challenges and concerns over missed appointments throughout the entire pandemic, all because of the lack of access to the digital world. We've seen the sad stories of inequity when it comes to the vaccine, in great part because early on in the vaccination rollout, those without computers or connectivity couldn't navigate the online appointment systems. These few examples illustrate just how vital equitable access truly is. It's an issue that intersects so many other inequities for individuals, families, and small businesses. We are long past the point of access to the digital world being a nice to have, but instead is a must have for all people. Throughout our COVID work, we could feel the depth of this issue. So ECCF's staff and board began to explore the challenge by convening community leaders to understand if this issue was as deep and pervasive as we believed it to be. We hosted two Think Labs last May with over 80 cross-sector community leaders coming together, and these sessions validated the need to tackle this issue. What we needed next was data to help us understand who this issue impacts, where this issue runs deep, and who has a solution that can bring about change. So we commissioned a data study on Essex County. Thanks in partnership to a few key funders, ECCF worked closely with Evan Horowitz, who leads the Tufts Center for State Policy Analysis. I always struggle with that name. He conducted the data analysis that culminated in a report on the 34 cities and towns that make up Essex County. In addition to the public data that Evan sourced, he also did a deeper dive with personal interviews in 6 communities where the digital divide was significantly wide. All of the findings from this study can be seen in this report and found on our website, but I'll just cut to the chase and share with you the high-level data. You can see here from the map that the darker the blue, the greater the digital divide is in these communities. But generally speaking, here is what Essex County looks like. 1 out of every 5 families in Essex County lacks at least one basic computer, 1. Never mind those households like Tatiana's who may need more than 1 computer in today's digital world. Nearly 160,000 people live without fixed broadband, and Hispanic residents are twice as likely than white residents to lack access. And as you can see from this map, our economic disadvantaged cities fare worse overall, which is probably not a surprise, but there are neighborhoods in every city and in every town that are impacted by this challenge. Here are some of the barriers that we learned. Here are some of the barriers that we learned contribute to these statistics and what is needed to advance digital equity for people across the county. First was access to Wi-Fi. We could solve short and medium-term problems with free or subsidized broadband internet. If we focused here, we could bring the digital world to tens of thousands of people. Next was actual equipment. This could take the shape of computers, tablets, devices, but it could also take the shape of hotspots or technology that tools like they call them boosters for internet speed and capacity. This too could help thousands of families. The third was digital literacy. And what we mean by that is the knowledge to find, use, and interact with the digital world. Devices and connectivity are only as good as being able to understand how to use them. And last, in a surprise to some of us for sure, was privacy issues. It's a significant barrier for vulnerable families. My husband is a high school teacher. I hear stories of how the lack of privacy and background settings when using technology can really hinder people's use of the technology, even if they have it. This data analysis was the second step in our systems change approach. We knew how many people were impacted and what the barriers were. Now we needed to decide what philanthropy could do to bring about change and determine what alongside the community we could actually do in Essex County. So from mid-October last year, in the next 5 months, ECCF set about a learning journey, learning from those with digital challenges like municipalities and nonprofits who engage with people in our local neighborhoods, to those who have real tangible solutions to these challenges. We, the collective we, really being Stratton and Kate, held over 100 meetings with for-profit providers, nonprofit leaders, and everyday people with solid ideas that addressed one of the 4 barriers I just talked about. From these meetings and conversations, we created a plan, a strategy really, of how philanthropic dollars could align and match for-profit funding to create a systems change approach that we are sharing with you today. We tested these ideas and solutions with nonprofit partners. We tested a fundraising goal to see if this area of need resonated with donors. And we tested the capacity of those solutions to scale their work and ideas to larger impact. While we do not have digital equity figured out, not by a long shot, we do have a strategy to get us started, and we're putting a stake in the ground today. This strategy was designed from community needs by engaging with cross-sector community leaders, and we hope to have systemic impact in our communities across the county. Okay, so I've explained the significant need for addressing and advancing digital equity by the data and what a multifaceted challenges look like. Let me tell you about our commitment to this work. ECCF is committing to raise at least $2 million to invest in this 3-year initiative. Our board has seeded this initiative with funding that allows us to launch this effort today, and we'll meet with donors and partners in the coming 3 months to raise and exceed our goal by the end of the summer. We are at 75% of the way there today. The more resources we raise, the greater the impact we can have on our vision to empower thousands of Essex County residents with the access, tools, and learning to fully participate in the digital world. That's our goal. It's what we intend to achieve. As with all of our systems change efforts at ECCF, we intend to have an impact on people, but we also strive to build and strengthen the ecosystem for long-term sustainability. With $2+ million in philanthropic funding and for-profit partners who share this goal with us, we intend to enable free and affordable access to the internet for 10,000 households and small businesses over 3 years. We intend to provide 5,000 people with devices that connect them to the digital world. And we intend to ensure 1,000 people and small businesses can gain the digital literacy they need to effectively navigate the benefits of the internet access world. We also intend to build a coalition of partners, an ecosystem to work together and inspire the ways in which cross-sector partnerships can collectively make a difference. With a strong ecosystem, we can tackle the problems of today while building the muscle that will prepare us to tackle the problems of the future head on. So you're probably asking by now, who will the funding support and what will this funding do? Let me introduce Stratton Lloyd, ECCF's Executive Vice President, and Kate Mache, Director of Strategic Initiatives. I call them the dynamic duo who leads ECCF's systems change work. They will outline our strategy and share some initial investments we are making to launch this 3-year effort today. Stratton and Kate?
Awesome, Beth. Thank you so much. And that was a terrific recap of our journey to date. And let me just pause and just say how happy I am to be with everyone today. It's such a joy to see all the names in the chat boxes, all the pictures and the videos, and then so many folks participating in this effort today. This is what really makes this work special for me in particular, is the work I do with you all, and seeing you all here all today is like this great reunion. So I really am enjoying that and celebrating that. And thank you for taking the time. As we jump into sharing sort of the digital equity strategy and how we're going to proceed over the next several years, it's great to start with the reminder that this strategy, and Beth talked about this a little bit, but this strategy is the culmination of over 250 community conversations that Kate and I have had over the past 9 to 12 months. And many of you all on this call have participated in those conversations, and that information has been critical to everything we are thinking and doing today as we move forward. Coupled with all of those conversations and those small focus groups and meetings and et cetera, is also the rich data that we've gathered from Tufts that Beth talked about too. So we start with the data, we start with the qualitative and quantitative data as we create everything as we move forward with our strategy. And that's really what drives all of our work. Also, just to note, this strategic framework is designed as all of our multi-year systems work is, and a lot of you all have participated in other multi-year systems work that we've done in small business work or Creative County or workforce development, et cetera, et cetera. All of this framework is designed intentionally to be flexible and agile and to allow for an iterative and constantly learning approach that is always community and data driven. So as we go forward, we'll be constantly gathering more data, more information, and adapting appropriately as we move forward, because 3 years is a long time and the digital world is accelerating at a pace that we can't keep up with on a day-to-day basis. So that's intentional in the framework that we've designed as we've done in the past. So our strategy includes 3 core components. One is the countywide systems-based initiatives, where ECCF plays the lead backbone role. I'll talk more about that and all of these in a second. The second are the locally based collaborative efforts that are community-driven cross-sector experiments, which many of you all participated in other work that we've done. And then the final one is the intentional investment in building the human infrastructure of our digital ecosystem to best share knowledge and optimize learning and long-term collaboration. Go to the next slide, Stacy. I caught you off guard on the next slide there, didn't I? Awesome, you did it, perfect. So the first piece here is the systems work, and the first part of our framework is our focus on systems-based partnerships. So what these are county-wide transformative efforts that aspire to have population-level impact for those that are most vulnerable, as shown in our data and other stuff that we've gathered over time. And we will implement 2 to 4 of these county-wide efforts, where ECCF will help cultivate the strategy and vision, and we will lead as the organizing backbone organization, sort of the facilitator and sort of chief cheerleader, I like to say, in these efforts, in these county-wide systemic efforts. Each of these efforts will include nonprofits, municipalities, for-profits, state agencies, community leaders, and in some cases, we'll have over 30 partners in each of these collectives. In these efforts, we are seeking opportunities where we can utilize ECCF's relationships and county perspective to leverage resources and partners, resulting in county-wide collective action impacting residents and communities from all over the county. These efforts focus on key gap areas in the digital ecosystem, areas that we've mapped out across the county and have identified through our research, and will include efforts to expand, as an example, free and affordable internet access in our most vulnerable zip codes, investments in a countywide digital literacy competency to serve hundreds of learners, and explore the possibility even of recycling and reusing technical hardware to more effectively enable devices across the county. Those are some examples of sort of large-scale systems-based county work. Kate, now I'm going to pass it to Kate, who has done a ton of this work. We are super lucky to have Kate on our team, and every day I am overjoyed with the fact that I am meeting with her and working with her. And many of you all know Kate, and you know how hardworking and passionate she is. So it's great to have her here. But I'm going to hand it off to Kate now to share some examples to make this very specific of some of the exciting systems-based efforts that are already underway. Go ahead, Kate.
Thank you, Stratton, and thanks, Beth, too. First, can I just say there's so much energy and passion in the chat, and it's just so great to see everyone. Thanks for the impromptu sharing of what digital equity means to you, your community, and those you serve. Because you know what the truth is, digital equity manifests itself in so many ways in our own neighborhoods. As you can see, and as you've heard from Beth and Stratton, ECCF is already hitting the ground running to ensure that access is reaching our most vulnerable through the county. As highlighted in our report and through the collective conversations around the district, ECCF's approach is to collaborate with the community, for the community, and look for solutions from the community. With this collaborative approach in mind, ECCF is working with our communities and our partners like Comcast and the Mass Tech Collaborative to bring access to those most in need, with a goal of enabling 30 free access points, both inside and outside, in nonprofits, municipal locations, parks, and more all across the county. The energy and the impact of this is transformational for so many of our neighbors in Essex County. So what does this mean? Well, we've heard about the amazing work in the Punto District in the videos in the main session, but in the Punto District, as seen here in the slide in Salem, this means hundreds of residents accessing community Wi-Fi. Imagine the small bodega owner in the heart of this district being able to get their first email address in order to access the grant that they couldn't get without that email address. Imagine the student who has a safe place to access the internet in a Boys and Girls Club to log into remote learning, instead of on a phone in a parking lot, or like we heard in the video, having to decide who gets to log on at what time. Imagine the parent of that child who doesn't have to worry whether their child could log in anymore. Imagine the opportunity. And next slide, please.
So the second part, as we get into the next part, area of focus of our strategy.
Stacey, I think we were going to.
Sorry, no, you go ahead. Great, yeah, go for it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Tech goes home. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, great. You know, these are just two examples that we saw before, but imagine the possibilities around the county and in your neighborhood and the communities you serve. This is where we started. Expect much more. The work has just begun. And now here we see that without digital literacy, there can be no digital equity. ECCF has partnered with Tech Goes Home to bring a county-wide digital literacy program to those most in need in Essex County, with the ultimate goal of educating 800 plus digital learners over 3 years by working with 5 community-based organizations across the county. Imagine the adult learner who now has the digital equity needed to have a resume, apply for a job online, breaking down barriers to earn a fair and living wage, to provide for families, and to have the capacity to think about the possibilities of their career. Imagine the grandmother who learns to video chat with family back home and can access telehealth. Imagine those 5 community organizations and their instructors getting updated training, curriculum, and the flexibility to adopt that program for their learners and scale for the future. Imagine the power and possibility of digital literacy in your neighborhood in our county. Go ahead, Stratton.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. And so that's the systems-based work and sort of the county-wide efforts and some of the vision there, and we'll continue to hone and evolve that over time. And Stacey, you go to the next slide, please. So the second part of our strategy are the area of focus are our collaborative accelerator grants. So in contrast to the county-wide efforts where ECCF is the lead, these efforts are local opportunities where we will invest in locally based cross-sector collaboratives and ideas designed and inspired by community-based collaboratives. These collaborative accelerator grants have become a key part of ECCF's systems work, and we have seen tremendous innovation, teamwork, and energy result from these efforts in our food systems work, as an example, which we are working on right now, and most notably in the over 20 Creative County collaborative projects completed to date. I hope many of you have been able to share and participate in these collaborative efforts in your locale. These collaborative grants are terrific mechanisms to build the muscle of local collaboration and inspire folks to think outside of their swim lanes and consider broader system solutions. These are meant to accelerate and amplify the local collective spirit and inspire innovation and experimentation. As a quick note, these collaborative accelerator grants have not started yet. So if you've not heard about them, it's because we have not started them and we have not officially announced and kicked that off yet. But we will likely be kicking these off in the later summer or in the early fall work. So you will hear about that, so stay tuned. So Kate will share some examples of what these grants will look like also and what these local collaboratives will be able to do.
Thanks, Stratton. At ECCF, we know the power of collaboration, and our partners do too. And you've all proven that just from this conversation in the chat alone. The data from our study, the impact of the pandemic on isolation, and the stories from around the county we have heard from our senior centers, municipalities, and members of the community highlighted the need for a collaborative intervention with our seniors. So a municipality got together with the senior center, staff, elder services, and volunteers to develop a model to loan out devices to seniors, provide culturally competent training and technical support to ensure seniors stay connected even when they were apart. This is just one example, but there are so many possibilities for collaboration. Imagine a school system, student organization, and a senior center teaming up to create a technical support service. The possibilities are truly endless. We look forward to the opportunity to find creative collaboration solutions coming by, from, and for the community. I'll turn it back over to Stratton.
Thanks, Dave and Stacey. Next slide. And clearly with collaboration at the local level, you know, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, you know, when we can work together to really tackle some of these complicated issues. So those are great to be able to inspire and invest in that type of thinking. So we're excited about that and have seen the results of that. Our final area of strategic investment is in our digital equity ecosystem. This is an area that is often overlooked in collaborative work. But as we have learned in all of our systems work, this is likely the most important area to invest, this idea of ecosystems. This is the work that builds relationships, builds trust across communities, across cross-sector leaders, and at the end of the day, builds the critical leadership and resilience that we require as a community to tackle the inevitable big challenges we face, such as the Columbia gas disaster and COVID-19, as a few examples, even in the past few years. Communities that have strong relationships, networks, and high trust levels, plain and simple, are more resilient and agile and respond faster to these shocks, whether they are economic, natural shocks, infrastructure, climate, or health related. We have learned this firsthand. And tackling today's and tomorrow's toughest challenges and opportunities depends on finding new ways to work together in greater relational alignment. But this ecosystem work doesn't happen by accident and requires time and intentionality. In this effort, we will invest in the digital human infrastructure, and we will create a coalition for folks that work on digital equity from across the county and across multiple sectors. This coalition will be a co-learning environment with the goal of maximizing our county's potential and optimize how we can all benefit from increased federal funding and investment in digital infrastructure, state funding and state efforts, new technologies that we may not be aware of that we can take advantage of, and new for-profit and nonprofit solutions and ideas happening across the county and across the nation that we can all take advantage of. At the end of the day, this ecosystem building work ensures that Essex County is smart, optimizes our funding and resources, and most importantly, is resilient. Now, Kate will share some specifics of how this ecosystem's work is already in action and the huge desire from the community to embark on this co-learning journey.
We are thrilled to announce that we launched the Essex County Digital Equity Coalition with our first meeting last week. Over 65 individuals and organizations from across our county, from nonprofit to for-profit, municipal leaders, legislators, community members, business leaders, and others, all sharing a goal for maximizing the potential of digital equity for all in Essex County. This ecosystem will continue to evolve and grow exponentially. This group of practitioners will share their solutions and experiences, spark ideas, break down silos, encourage collaboration, and build the human infrastructure needed to bring digital equity to all corners of Essex County. The collaborative possibilities are endless. We'll be collating, discussing, and working together on the output from our first collaborative session, but let me share a few ideas that came out of that coalition. For sharing and economies of scale. A creative solution in Lynn can be scaled and brought to Haverhill. Lawrence can pilot a program and share with Salem. From Cape Ann to Salem, Peabody and Lynn to Lawrence, Haverhill, and Methuen. The power of these conversations and collaborative spirit is exciting to even imagine. As new opportunities come out from federal, state, and local programs, together we can discuss and share these resources, what they are, how to apply for them, like ARPA, and the possibilities of an infrastructure bill, and those yet to be thought of, just to name a few. I would encourage you all, if you are not part of the coalition now, if you want to be, if you know members that you think should be, this is all inclusive and we would welcome it. We have started the work today and we are building the capacity for the future.
Awesome, Kate. And it's all about unleashing the potential. One of the things that Kate and I have found in our conversations is there are so many smart, capable people doing really interesting work, some in the county, some not even in the county, that could tap in and help us all together be more effective. And so that's really what we're seeking. So, as noted before, this strategic framework, which spans across countywide systems efforts, locally driven collective experiments, and ecosystem building, is designed to be flexible and adaptive. Our digital marketplace and world is changing quickly, and our communities and leaders are learning and evolving. It's imperative to learn as we go, with the end goal of empowering thousands of our residents today and in the future with the access, tools, and learning to fully participate in this increasingly digital world we all live, work, and play in. Now we will hand it back to Stacy and Beth to close it out. Thank you.
All right, everyone. I hope you can hear me. The internet at ECCF is just cutting out. I think that we have overloaded our system here with all this amazing work today. So thank you all very much for being here. And thanks to Kate and Stratton and Beth for walking us through. Every time I hear more about, the digital divide, what it means, what the impact has been, and really the opportunities that we have to build digital inclusion and equity in our communities, I get so fired up. And at the core, because it's at the core of this advancing digital equity strategy, is this belief that to fully become who we are as people, as humans, and as a community, that we must be able to connect. And over the last year and a half, we have all experienced the pain and the hardship that comes from being, forcibly disconnected to so many aspects of our lives. For so many of us, we were able to pivot to connect to at least some part of our lives in the digital world. Yet for so many more, we now see that that pivot wasn't possible, and that the inability to connect to the digital world remains and will remain unless we step in and do something together. And of course, that is where this 3-year advancing digital equity strategy comes in. And the most important aspect of this strategy is actually the acknowledgement that to truly achieve it, to truly achieve what we hope to for Essex County, is that it will take all of us. We at ECCF do not have all the answers. We do not have all of the resources nor all of the knowledge. And if you just glance at the chat, you're already seeing some big ideas come to the table, some ideas for resources. And so we know that it's going to take all of us to truly advance digital equity. And so as a group, as we wrap up this presentation and go full speed ahead into this work, we look to all of you and offer an invitation for you to connect into this effort to achieve digital equity in Essex County. And of course, we have some ideas for you just off the bat. So if you're a funder or you're an individual curious as to how your philanthropic dollars can power these strategies you heard about today, we invite you to connect. If you are a municipal or government leader and you're hearing from your constituents that digital equity is important to them, we invite you to connect. If you're a business or have a connection to a resource that can help in these efforts, we invite you to connect. And if you are a nonprofit organization and you know that the community you're serving is impacted by the digital divide and you have creative ideas for how to bridge it, we invite you to connect. I think that you're getting the theme here. And so in another slide or two, you're going to see the names of those of us on the sort of digital equity team here at ECCF and our contact information. We invite you to reach out to any one of us and we'll find the right person or the right conversations, the right work to connect you to. So thank you so much for your enthusiasm, for your partnership. And with that, I will hand it back over to Beth.
Thanks, Stacy. Just a giant and quick thank you before we get to the Q&A to extend our sincere appreciation for our corporate partners that provide the operating support here at the foundation. It's the support that allows us to dedicate all these resources that have just talked to you to help do our systems change work. We want to thank them for allowing us to focus on community leadership needs and setting the course to bring about the change in all of our community leadership initiatives. So much thank you. To those who have already funded our digital equity $2 million goal, thank you. And to those who are willing to, as Stacy just talked about, we look forward to talking to you. So let's pause, let's stop sharing for a moment. Maybe Stacy, we can answer any questions that folks have from the chat, if there are any. So feel free to plug any questions that you have into the chat and we'll all come back up and be happy to answer anything that we can. I guess maybe to just leave on the fact that this is evolving still here at the Community Foundation for us. We do not have all the answers. We are putting a stake in the ground with our coalition that these answers are going to emerge and come, and they're clearly already in the chat coming fast and furious. And so while we are in for the long haul, we do have a goal for 3 years of this work, and the more funding we raise just means the more impact that we can have for our community. So we'll leave it there and happy to take any questions that people have. Because there's no way we covered every single thing that you wanted to know about digital equity in Essex County.
I'm sort of scrolling through here, but if anybody has a question that they have, they want to unmute themselves and just ask really quickly as I scroll through, I'm happy to start there.
And I'll just say, I know there's a lot of stuff in the chat around recycling technology and devices and et cetera. And we noted that as one of our possible, it's a very early stage possible systems change effort. And reach out to us. Anyway, we'll track the chat, we'll get the names and stuff like that. But absolutely, we are of similar mind, and we are bullish on this possibility in Essex County. There's also some great companies doing this type of work that we can partner with locally in the county too, and in the Merrimack Valley and Lawrence area as an example. So, but please share any ideas or interest, and maybe that becomes a task force or a smaller breakout group of our coalition as an example to focus on this type of work.
Stratton, that's a great idea. How will we keep updated about this? Because this is like such a great program. And I know in the chat, I was writing about, donations and things like that. And I know this is just beginning. So how can we keep informed about this? And I'd probably be happy to join like a smaller task force, but already I'm thinking about, oh my goodness, my husband has a small company. He just updated some computers. How can we start this process?
Kate, do you want to jump in there and say anything on that?
Yeah, I would definitely say that we would love to include you in this conversation. So I'm going to put my email in the chat here. I would love to connect to all of you on this call right now that have that type of idea or connections to this project and to others, and we can look, depending on the interest, to how many coalition kind of subcommittees we can get together right now. I think that was kind of the vision for longer down the road, but the energy is just really palpable around this issue, and there's obviously a lot of ideas, and the possibility, I think, of the e-recycling program from our businesses on the ground in Essex County is really transformational, and we'd love to keep talking about it. So I'll pop my email in the chat.
And Deborah, I mean, the obviously, you know, you can participate in the coalition, and we'll meet periodically on that. There's no obligation there. You know, it's just sort of, you know, show up when you can, invite others that want to participate. And as far as the specific equipment and recycling effort, you know, we have some ideas for you immediately on that. So,
Yes.
you know, send us a note, and we can, you know, even for like, if you got 20 devices sitting somewhere right now in a closet, we have a possible solution for that. That's part of the acute need, but in the longer term, we also want to paint a longer term vision for that. But we are in the process of building out something in that world also. So definitely reach out to us, and we can take action on that. And the interesting thing,
we have
the
two
interesting
people
thing, I'll
raised.
just say real quickly on that is that's a perfect example where it requires a system solution, right? Where you need the for-profit company to work with a nonprofit company that has the connections with the educational institutions or others that need the devices. And in a silo, it's just impossible to do. But together, it's actually pretty easy, you know? So great. Thank you, Deborah.
Yeah,
Two ways to
thanks.
also on our website, there are newsletters that you can sign up for to keep informed. And then secondly, as all things systems change work, for those of you who have been involved with us with either our Creative County Initiative, our Workforce Development Initiatives, our Empowering Economic Opportunity Initiatives, we do periodical updates of the impact that our investments are having. And we will be sharing stories of that work as it comes out. So you want to sign up for our digital equity newsletter, and you also want to sign up for just being in our loop. Deborah happens to be in every loop that we have, so that's not a problem for her. But for those of you that are on the call that are not, please connect with us that way too.
Great. And we have two folks who have raised their hands, so we're going to sort of go in that order. And then there's a couple of questions in the chat. If we don't get to your question in the chat, still please write it in there, because we will follow up. And of course, it's all part of informing it. So first, I want to invite Representative Cairns to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Finding the dreaded unmute button. There you go.
Got it. Good morning. Phenomenal presentation, phenomenal work by ECCF. No surprise there. Great to see my friend Kate Miche. So I don't know, all of you just leading on this. Can you shed any light on your findings about the digital divide in communities? I was on a call with other legislators a few months ago and was hearing people talk about, you know, moms and their third graders in the car outside the library, so that the mom could work and her daughter could go to school. And I thought, gosh, isn't that terrible? And now I'm listening to what your findings were and thinking, that's not just out in rural Western Mass, is it? That's pretty close to home. And, you know, can you shed any light on, was it an entire town or just parts of towns and cities? Just would love to hear more if you have a second to share that. Thanks.
Representative, thank you so much for that question. It's very good to see you as well. I think that we're seeing this everywhere. What the report showed us is that there is a digital equity in every single community in Essex County, every single one. And I think the stories of people going to parking lots and trying to use their cell phones, like something I touched upon, something other people have touched upon, are stories you're not just hearing out in rural Western Mass. They're in our cities. They're in every city. And there's multiple stories of this. This is not specific, and they're even in our towns, right? In Cape Ann and other places, it's happening as well. So I appreciate this comment so much, because I think a lot of us, you know, hear these things, and having worked statewide before, you kind of assume that certain things are in rural areas or certain things, but it is here. It is in Essex County. It's your neighbor. It's in every city and town. And I really, really appreciate that question. Does that help?
The
I would
report the report talks a little bit about, the fact that over 60,000 households in our county are lacking access to broadband. And when you drill that, you realize it's not just that they don't have access to the cable and the ground that might be available. It's also the affordability of it.
Yeah.
And the ability to get it if you are sharing housing with other families or other people, to have that in your space and to be able to access it effectively, or to have good connection, a quality connection, or data plans that work. There's a lot of sort of barriers and limits to that, not just the fact that when a cable is in the ground and connecting to your building. And in the report, it's interesting, if you go to the back of the report, it actually goes through all 34 towns and cities and has a bit of a highlight on each one to give a little bit of detail. So, even if you're in, Newburyport or, Manchester or Rowley or others, there's sort of specific opportunities for you there to consider around the digital divide in your local community, let alone across the whole county.
I put that report in the chat, so you can, any one of us, and I encourage all of you to do this for your own community and the communities that you serve too, if you haven't already done it, or even if you have, to go back and take a refresh of your community and the ones that you serve and take a look at that, because we drill down to the specifics. We drill down also to what is unique about your particular location. And I think a lot of us could really get some insight of that.
Great. Thank you all. We have another question here from Counselor Ziegler. Do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Perfect, Eunice. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this great program. I've learned so much, and it's wonderful to see all the projects and all the work that you're doing. So I come into this space wearing many hats. I'm a counselor in Methuen, but I also work for the Lowell Housing Authority, as well as, and in my role, I work directly with residents. So I'm looking at, what's been proposed, and I have just a couple of questions. One, whether there have been conversations with Housing Authority and/or affordable housing agencies to include them in this partnership, and then two, in terms of your municipal partners at the local level, whether there is an intention to create like a repository of potential policies that can help to forward this mission in terms of the digital divide.
Counselor, we really appreciate that question, and housing authorities are absolutely on our list of areas in discussion that we need to be having over the next several months and several weeks in the near term. And if there are, for the Housing Authority in Methuen, if you want to make those connections, please do. And for all of you on the call, we're going to be in the process of doing that now. Stratton, do you have anything to add on that?
I'll just say to underscore that that's a priority for us, and we love introductions to any folks in some of those particular areas that you think would be helpful in expediting those conversations. That's certainly a priority for us as we talk about access and community-based access.
And the second part of your question too, just to address that, I really appreciated that you're asking about what can happen at the municipal and the local level. And each one of us experiences, and we saw that in the chat too, digital equity in a very different way. Our constituents do, our cities, our towns, everyone does. And that's what we've been talking about this whole time. And so having these conversations continuously to see what it is that your community needs, how ECCF can be helpful, how philanthropy can be helpful, how collaboration can be helpful, that can only continue to have an impact on that particular neighborhood. And we really want to continue those conversations, Counselor, and look forward to it.
And I think, a piece of what you were saying, Eunice, I think if I heard correctly too, around policy and around learning together in a repository of information, that's what the whole spirit of the coalition is, and again, we'll follow the desire of the coalition and the larger ecosystem, what we want to learn and where we want to go with that. But I think from a high level, we expect that to be an opportunity to gather knowledge quickly and then disseminate that knowledge quickly across the county. It might be a new state grant. It might be new funding from the federal government. It might be new technology that a new provider is offering at a discounted rate, et cetera. We want to play the role with the coalition to distribute that information as fast as possible, or to connect that information in the county with us that could benefit from that. So we think about maximizing the full potential of our county and taking advantage of that. And I think part of that will fall into advocacy to a degree, and certainly, educating people, as we've already done through the report, around these topics, and around ensuring that people understand that digital access, as I think all of us on this call know, is not a nice to have. It's a way of living. And if you want to run your small business, if you want to have your children, be able to engage fully in school, if you want to be able to connect with your, with your elderly parents that might be isolated, if you want to apply for unemployment insurance, if you want to order online food, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, telehealth, all of these are, you need to have, digital access that's affordable, that's modern, and that enables you to have the right security, privacy, and all those other things to be able to engage fully as an individual in our society. And that's just going to only accelerate. And so the time is now to make sure that everyone's aware of that, and that we're all working together to do this work.
Please share what you have learned today with those that should be at the table in our coalition. We are certainly our intention is to reach out to all sorts of pockets and different sectors, but it would help expedite all of that work by having you share with your networks about the importance of engaging with this as well.
Beth, I just want to give everybody a heads up that we promised that this would be a 45-minute presentation, and we've hit that 45 minutes. So, but we do have a couple of other people that have questions that have raised their hands to ask. So maybe for those of you who need to hop off, of course, that makes sense, and do as you need to. But that we can stick around too for a little bit if there are additional questions. Does that sound okay, Beth? Or do you want to wrap it up in a more specific
Great. Yeah,
way?
it's great.
Great. How about Julie LaFontaine? How about you go ahead next?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. What a really inspiring morning and timely topic. I was just wondering, as I'm listening to all of this, early on in my executive directorship, I was at a meeting somewhere and we were trying to figure something out. And we heard someone stand up and say, "Nothing about us without us." And I'm wondering if, where the client and the constituent voice is in this coalition of partners for digital equity.
Does anybody want to? I'll start, and anybody else can jump in. Kate, and your point is well taken, first of all, Julie. We are working with we're starting some of the investments that we've been making have been with nonprofit partners who are at the grassroots level with our constituents and our residents and communities. And I'll use just one example. You saw Tatiana in our Rising Together event. The work that we're doing with the North Shore CDC is our connection to the community, right? So we are asking our nonprofits to inform us in this work of the direct discussions and issues that they're seeing on the ground level. So I'll just use that as one example. And again, we need to build into the work that we're doing as it continues to roll out. Kate, do you want to add anything to that?
I'll just say a couple of things real quick, Kate. Sorry. One is, I underscore what Beth is saying. We're leaning on folks like you, Julie, and you know that we're reaching out to you and talking to you and others. We're leaning on you all to be the voice of your constituents and clients as a starting place, to make sure we're hearing that in any work that we're doing. And all of the work and the framework that we've developed comes from those conversations. But I think it's an opportunity. The second thing I'll just say, I think it's an opportunity as we talk about building the coalition, the ecosystem. And again, we just have started that process, and that'll be an evolution. But I'd love to explore. Again, we're facilitators of the coalition. We're sort of facilitators. I'd love to explore how to do that better, how to bring those voices, more into the conversation and more effectively into the conversation to ensure that our compass is set correctly. So I think that's a good challenge for us, and something that, but I think something that we have a real opportunity to do as we build this ecosystem. So thanks for bringing it up.
Julie, I echo that. I think that, we had said in our presentation that the solutions are coming by the community, from the community, and for the community. And part of that is working with our nonprofits and our other groups at the table here to make sure that we're hearing all the voices. And the only way to do that is to continue to open it up to everyone, have the conversations, collaborate with you and other people who have similar roles or even different roles that serve the community. What works best in your community? How do you do that engagement in your community? Because that in Cape Ann, that's going to look very different than it will in Lawrence. It's going to look very different in Lynn than it's going to in Methuen. But we need to all work together to make sure that that's happening in a fair and equitable way, in a way that people are very comfortable with, that's culturally competent, that really brings all those voices to the table. And we hope that we continue to hear from folks on how to best do that in their community, in their neighborhood.
I think you're on mute, Julie.
Still Zoom world, right?
Here, I'm going to unmute you, okay?
Wait, you're not, we can't hear you.
There we
There you
go.
go.
There we go. I was trying the space bar trick and it was not working. So thank you so much. And I have a lot of confidence in making sure we have good voices around the table. Councillor Ziegler mentioned the housing authorities. And within the housing authorities, there are often very strong tenant groups, and they might be a good place to reach out. Just a thought.
Yeah,
Thank
great
you.
idea.
To continue to send us those ideas.
We have one more question. Steve Fink, would you like to please unmute yourself?
Yes, great program. I'm great to see all the friends here online. Building on Julie's question, I've worked with at least half a dozen people that are on the call here with the youth in Essex County. And I haven't heard the youth as being a source of the solution as much in the dialogue. I've heard them as being people we need to serve, certainly. But I can't help thinking, and I'm thinking about communities all over the place. But I can think of several schools in Lawrence and several schools in Andover and a school in Peabody and a school in Newburyport. We need to get in on this. And that's just because those are the only ones I know. But having, in terms of your collaboration, Stratton, boy, let's get these kids doing it and rocking. There is one program, just to mention, we're doing a program like this for seniors in Andover where I live. And let me tell you how important the kids are to that one. Okay, so we know this can work. Thanks.
Right. Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. And there are models where youth are sort of providing technical support and assistance, and who knows how to navigate their applications and web and devices better than the youth, right?
And marketing, just getting out to everybody, getting out to the community, getting everybody excited. Absolutely.
And that's definitely a big piece of it. One thing I'll just note is that in our Creative County work, as an example, in arts and culture, where we've done these collaborative grants, and we've been so fortunate to partner with Elevated Thought and Marquise and Lawrence, and Marquise just does such a wonderful job at sort of engaging youth in art and culture, as most of you all probably know, and if not, you definitely will know soon. But one of the things that we did is that was a great example of saying, hey, how do we work to do a collaborative grant where Marquise worked with the library, worked with Groundwork Lawrence, worked with the school system to partner to design a mural in Lawrence on the public library there that many of you all maybe have seen. But really all of the ideas came from him working with youth to gather that information to inspire the art and inspire the work and even produce that work. And that's just an example of great collaboration, a vehicle to experiment and test some of those ideas of how to incorporate youth into the conversation, and then, if successful, to really scale them up. And obviously, Elevated Thought continues to grow and expand, and that's awesome, and really be an impact across the whole county. And hopefully we'll have other areas like that we can help amplify and accelerate that are youth
Of
oriented.
course, I was thinking specifically of Lisa and Heather, you mentioned both
Yeah.
in that story as perfect examples
Yep.
of.
There's great work out there. We need to help amplify it and accelerate it. There's good stuff out there just like that. And that's the role that we can play. And then if things work in Lawrence or Merrimack Valley, well, they might be able to work in other communities. So let's continue to have that dialogue and look for ways to spread that innovation.
Steve, I appreciate that comment, and it's good to see you. One other thing just to add on that, in the chat, there's a conversation also with the Lynn Y on getting teens engaged as well. And I think the other side of this coin, right, that we've all seen here is not just, the technology use and the way that teens and children can be part of the solution, but also what are their needs and how do we meet them there and how are they seeing this problem, right? How can we meet them where they need to be served? And that's true for all sorts of different constituencies that are within the layer of our county. We have so much here to learn from, and we are going to continue that journey. That learning doesn't end today. It will just continue on and on. So we look forward to continuing getting all these recommendations to have these conversations, and also encouraging our nonprofits to be doing the same, having, roundtable discussions, within your nonprofits too, to have these conversations.
We don't have any really more burning questions of anybody raising their hand right now. And I just want to be cognizant of the time, Beth. So maybe this is a good time to wrap up and just say that we'll be following up with everyone soon.
Terrific. Way to end it. Great big thank you for sticking with us. Those of you who joined us on Rising Together this morning and for here, you've devoted a good chunk of time to us today. Thank you for our nonprofit friends on the call. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. You have had quite the year, the 15, 16. We couldn't be more proud of the work that everyone has been doing, and ECCF playing a small part in helping invest in some of that work. So, but thank you all. We look forward to this journey on digital equity together. We have some big lofty goals, and please engage with us because it's going to take all of us to do the work.